I'd asked the chief for this opportunity to address roll calls so that I could share some of the things I've learned in the nearly 3 decades that I've been in the wheelchair. I want to say that I'm here because I care about you. I love cops, and I don't want to see anything bad happen to you. I was a very young police officer, not even 2 years on the job when I was shot by a teenager. Bad things do happen to good people. But I forgave the boy who shot me. Dear Brother Christoph, I am deeply concerned at the potential for violence at this time. True peace comes only through nonviolence.
Stephen's story is one of faith and forgiveness, because after Stephen's injury, the young boy that shot him, Stephen, was able to forgive him.
He put aside his real personal feelings and he forgave that individual. And that's something that I know I would have a difficult time doing.
We have seen through the years people that when something's happened and they've held on to that anger and it festers up inside of them and it destroys them from the inside out. And thank God Stephen was able to, you know, let go of that.
I'm therefore asking that you accompany me on a peace mission to Northern Ireland to spread the message of forgiveness and reconciliation. Very truly yours, Stephen McDonald. As a result of forgiving, he goes around and he speaks, and one of them was going over to Northern Ireland and the conflict between the Catholics and the Protestants and the different things that have happened on both sides.
Well, I believe he's given hope to people who might otherwise have just withered away.
He acts as a mentor to police officers, and he is an ambassador for peace.
And then Stephen speaking at different schools, especially in the inner cities, and he travels not just in New York area, but he's gone beyond the New York area. I mean, he travels all over the country.
When Stephen goes around the country and he speaks, he truly moves people. But it just gives you a little insight into the human being that he really is.
And he's had such a productive life, and he's known everywhere.
Not many people could overcome the obstacles that he and his family have overcome to be a successful police officer, a successful husband and father.
Was shot in Central Park. The bullet paralyzed McDonald from the neck down. He had only recently been married. His wife was pregnant.
You know, it's funny people say that's 26 years, but still, like, when you think about it, it always, you know, it seems like it was yesterday.
I do remember that day well. It was July 12th of 1986.
Well, I remember that a young police officer was shot in Central Park.
It was just a tragedy.
He is the most seriously wounded police officer ever on the New York City police force.
A priest had given me the last rites, and they expected that I would die before the night. I was newly married, my wife. Patty Ann was pregnant with our baby. Life was promising. I was out of the bag. As we say, I moved from being in uniform to plain clothes. The 12th of July, 1986, I went to work. I met my boss. My supervisor, it was just he and I that were working on this day. Everybody else had taken off.
Steve was working the weekend, so I went down to visit my sister who had just moved down to Pennsylvania, so I took the train down. Saturday afternoon, I spoke to him, and he said he wasn't feeling 100%, but he was going to work because there were a couple of guys that weren't coming in that day. It had to be not even 2 hours later that I got a phone call.
Sergeant King and I watched these three kids who acted in a very suspicious way. In a place in the park that we knew had its experiences with crime, that we decided we're going to question them. The kids were next to me as we drove by looking at each other, and I said, "This doesn't look good," and I looked in the rearview mirror, and the boys are running, and we could see the boys running into this clearing meadow, and I came upon the boys very quickly, and I thought I saw a weapon in the sock of the smaller of the three boys, and I knelt down and touched it, and that was my error, my tactical error, my mistake. The older of the three, the ringleader of this little group, he pulled out a firearm. And again, I could hear him move over me, and I looked up and I was staring down the barrel. I watched the barrel of the firearm erupt. What remains with me today is how loud it was. I believe the first bullet struck me in the head above my right eye as I fell backwards. He stepped a little bit closer and he shot me in the throat. And he stepped over me and fired a third shot into me. As I laid on the ground, I was in a lot of pain, very confused. I wasn't sure what happened, what was going to happen. Where I was, it was raining. The rain was falling on my face, my head was spinning out of control. You could feel life leaving you.
Central, we have confirmed shot. Front of the 253 center, level 3 mobilization.
I could hear Sergeant King running down that hill into the meadow, the clearing, and he was yelling into his radio. 1013, Central 10. 1013, and that's our way of saying an officer's down.
10-4, say a confirmed officer down. U3, Central, shall we respond? U3, 10-4. Once again, it's a confirmed officer down. First shot fired. Third level 1 mobilization. That's an officer down. I'll come out with division and statement that an officer down. That's affirmative. I show all units responding.
A New York City police officer has been shot. Apparently it's serious. Details are just now coming in, but here's what we know. Late this afternoon, an NYPD detective was shot in point-blank range.
We're getting the serious news of those injuries.
Central Park is rocked tonight by a violent shooting. A New York City police detective is clinging to life tonight.
He's in the intensive care unit of Bellevue Hospital. Family, friends, and several NYPD officers are holding a vigil for him.
I was picked up by the Pennsylvania police and then transported to the New Jersey state troopers, and then from the state troop, like I kept getting from one state to the next, getting picked up by different police. The closer I got to the city, I knew that something was really wrong because they were very quiet. They really weren't talking to me because, I mean, they knew how serious it was. And when I got to the hospital and I saw everyone's faces, I knew that this was not good. I remember certain faces. There was one police officer that worked with Stephen, and I remember his face, and just like, you know, when you look at somebody and they're looking at you going, I can't believe that this has happened, and then saw my family and they would, you know, embracing me, and, you know, everyone was crying. And
my job was to survive 1 minute to 1 hour to the next day.
it was up and down for many months with Stephen. I mean, it wasn't, you know, I mean, it was getting him through the injury of getting shot and then the infections and all of those things that happen when you're injured. And so we had a real battle.
There were days I didn't want to live. Days I thought, how can I do my job as a husband, a father, a police officer, the medical staff, the nurses. We don't know what else we could do for him. And you're like, what? Where do we go from here?
And I remember leaving Bellevue Hospital, and I was so scared. Back 26 years ago, there really wasn't any place here on the East Coast like Craig. So we looked into Craig and decided that this looks like the place that we need to go to. And it was a tough decision because it's so far away, and our family and friends had been our support, and we depended on them. So to move, you know, basically move out to Colorado with Stephen was the best thing for him. And it was a decision that was difficult, but I'm very happy that we did because it gave us back life.
You know, he first got here, you know, he had not been sitting up much. He didn't have a voice. He came on a Monday, and on Tuesday, we got him up in a chair and took him outside. Because I asked him, what would you like to do? And he mouthed, outside. You know, Patty Ann was with us, so she was able to tell me, you know, that, you know, he's been in a hospital since July and not gone outside at all. And of course, I was thinking, why didn't they take him outside? And on one of my New York trips, he took me by Bellevue and said, you see why I didn't go outside? I said, okay, I get it now. But there was one side of his neck that, because of the bullet and they had to do some surgery, it was very weak, and so he had a hard time holding his head up, type of thing. And so, you know, we were working on trying to strengthen those muscles so he could have better head control. Because when he left, he had, you know, number one, he had a voice, and he got a voice pretty quickly here. I don't remember exactly how long, but I know they were able to put a trach in him that allowed him to vocalize. And once he started talking, Stephen's a talker.
So much could be communicated in the way we talk to somebody. The words that we use, and to follow that up, the touch, how we touch someone.
Just even those little things, or transfers, or dressing. You're trying to give people control of their life again, in whatever form that is.
They were so supportive and encouraging of having, you know, the family around, and being with, you know, Connor being with Stephen, and you know, me being there and being a part of, you know every aspect of Stephen's recovery.
You know, instead of saying, okay, we've got this hour of therapy, we've got to get this stuff done or whatever, you know, just to be able to have a patient feel comfortable enough that they can just talk about their fears or their concerns or how hard this is.
We have an incredible bond between ourselves with Sharon. I mean, she is a very unique person. And what I mean by that is Sharon, she accepts everybody and is just such a kind, giving, loving person.
That's all I would do, is I would listen to him. I gave him the space to talk.
What's bottled up inside of our broken bodies, what we want to get out of us, they could speak to me and it would release these feelings that I didn't know how to get them out of me.
You got me right. You got me right. Always, Stephen. Have I ever dropped you? I didn't even let you fall off my porch that time.
Oh, geez, that's right.
And that was part of the healing process. In with the good, out with the bad.
We talked a lot about family, so our connections initially were just talking about, you know, our different families and our upbringing and what we did as kids and what kind of things we liked to do. And through that conversation would come some of his angst about this injury and how he was going to still be that dad and that husband. You start having conversations like that with people, you develop a connection.
And you're building something every day, that you're working with the therapists and the nurses and the doctors. Maybe it is trust. Here we go. This is where we started, really.
Yeah, this is where
in this corner.
Yeah, true. Good.
Seriously? Yep.
Policing the streets of New York City is a very difficult, dangerous, and sometimes a deadly job.
We are always going to be involved in some sort of conflict, with tension involved. We are the bearers of bad news. We issue traffic summonses. We arrest people. We use force, sometimes a deadly force. That does not make everyone happy.
I've always said it, that going into law enforcement, especially in the NYPD, it's more than a job. I always view it as a calling. God calls special individuals to come into the NYPD.
I've chosen the career path I've chosen because I want to help people. My whole entire life cops have been in and out of my house. I've heard the story of my father, heard stories of my dad's friends, you know, helping people.
With the addition of my only child, my son, there are today 12 of us that have been a part of the New York City Police Department. And I tell everyone proudly, if you took those 12 lives and added all the time they've given to the city of New York, it's over 300 years of service.
When I got into the academy, it just felt right. It was like, it's where I'm supposed to be.
He wanted to join the police department. I think fair to say that Stephen and Patty Ann had some doubts about that.
He called us one night and said, I'm going to be calling you and Dad around 7 o'clock this evening. I was like, okay. So I was on one end, Stephen was on the other end of the phone, and he's like, I got a call from the police department and I really want to do this. And I was like, you're kidding. I was like, well, if this is something you really want, I mean, I'm not going to stand in your way.
Connor's life is different from mine. He's a college graduate, Boston. College graduate, his friends, who he dormed with or went to school. In high school with, they went to graduate school. Some went to law school, some went downtown working on Wall Street.
I kind of wasn't, a 9-to-5 desk guy. I think part of me is like, I'm a father and my father and mother's son, I want to help people.
I mean, it wasn't my choice, Obviously, it wouldn't have been something when he was born, I want you to be a cop because of, you know, obviously what happened to his dad. But he's been around so many phenomenal men and women from the police department. And if he can be as good as these men and women, then I'll be very happy.
He actually is wearing my badge that I wore as a police officer. I'm very, very proud of that.
It makes you feel good. Like, it makes you feel like you're helping society. And there's no other place I could do that besides, you know, New York City Police Department. And I just hope, I hope that makes him proud.
He gives us so much good pride, good feelings, makes us feel good about ourselves, and life has meaning.
I'm Chris O'Donoghue in Denver. It was an early morning rising for Stephen McDonald here after a sleepless night. A year and a half of hospital living is enough. Today, Stephen was finally going home.
Roll down Fifth Avenue, Statue of Liberty, go back to Central Park.
Despite the bitter cold, there was a huge crowd of masked police and neighbors to welcome Stephen McDonald to his new home, including the man who is godfather to little Connor, New York's mayor.
His life, even though it will be limited, will be fuller than many others who can do all of the physical things that, regrettably, he won't be able to do.
I think that the major reason for his being able to do what he has done is his own personal strength of character.
Despite Stephen's considerable disability, rehabilitation has helped him and his wife Patty to face an uncertain future.
Helped us, Stephen and I, to get back into life again, to deal with going out and just dealing with Stephen's condition at this point in time.
I never thought twice, you know, about being with him, and I mean, it was for better or for worse. If we had gone with what the doctors had suggested that 20-something years ago, over 26 years ago, for him to go into a long-term facility, I don't think Stephen would be here today. But the fact that we took that step and went out to Colorado with Stephen, we are where we are today because of that. It was like, it's going to be okay. And when something like this happens in your life, you don't think it's going to be okay. I never imagined that it would be okay. And we would be having, like I said before, a normal life out of an abnormal situation.
And what are we all here for? But to help each other. You know, and so to be able to be in a profession where every day I can help somebody. I can walk out the door every day and go, I helped somebody today. I made a difference.
It's good to be alive. Very good to be alive and a member of this police department. That I was able to forgive that boy. And he apologized to my wife for doing this to me. You know, I love my family. I do, and I love this family. My last two thoughts. We have to do a better job of helping each other, supporting each other. And yes, even loving each other. Whatever you find yourself in that dark place, we can help you get out of it. Your life is important. Thank you. Be safe. I've lived such a wonderful life. This life is an antidote. Prayer, my life, is a good life. I'm so grateful that I could be with Patty Ann and Connor all this time. Back in October or November of 1987, I knew when I went home, my life was going to be very different. And it has been, and it's been very rewarding, very helpful in my journey. It's different for everyone, but we're sent here to do good with our lives. Love is the way. Love is the way.